I'm William Shatner. I've done a lot of things in my career, but this takes the cake. This is so cool. You, Joseph, today, it's all about you. You won the internet. Congratulations. It's exciting. It makes me want to celebrate. Makes me want to get up out of this chair. Makes me want to sing. Makes me want to dance. Makes me want to shout. Kick my heels up. Throw my hands up. Toss my head back. No, really, people should be shouting your name in the street.
Come on now. Sing that name.
Sing that song.
Joseph,
Sing it out loud.
Joseph.
I want to celebrate. Put it up in lights. No one else deserves to be celebrated like you because you are the best.
Joseph Jaffe is not famous. Me, Tom Arnold, I am very famous. I absolutely like, because it's very true. Like, I hadn't freaking heard of you until I was sitting on a Friday night. This is how bad my life is. Listen, fucker, good luck. Good luck with your rebranding. Like anybody knew what the name was before. What was the name? Okay, who gives a shit? That's a good name because it's got your name in it. You can pretend you're humble. You say, I'm not famous. And, which you aren't. So you're just, I mean, anyway, but I hope you get famous doing this. Good luck to you.
When it comes to chicken, I'm your guy. Oh, shoot. I'm sorry. Something. Hang on a second.
This show is not financial advice.
When it comes to chicken, I'm your guy.
LinkedIn.
I'll have what Joseph has.
Look, somebody's talking about you.
This is what we call the voice of God.
Popping.
Everybody just gets to focus on you.
Grab me.
Probably not the best thing for an introvert.
I'm asking for you.
Well, I like a good chicken sandwich.
Touch me. Hi, David. Comment.
Oh my God.
Like.
You're actually an identical twin.
Push.
Maybe I'll just ask Julie to talk about what it is to be
No.
an identical twin.
Pick me up.
No, you didn't.
Shouting.
Surprise! Jeremiah, just hang on a second. I just got a text.
There's an edit for your new opening, Joseph.
I feel really honored to have been here, man.
By the way, you've done a masterful job. Seriously.
And it was such a joy.
Thanks, Joseph. It's an honor.
Good on you. This was a pleasure.
I mean, you are a prime example of how to pivot in this new environment.
I wish everybody gets an opportunity to interact with Joseph Jaffe.
Who needs Cameo when I've got my own personal Cameo? Today, everyone became Fanzo. Today, we were all Fanzo because for the last 365 days, Fanzo has been with us in our ear holes, penetrating our ear holes. Listen, this is not for children, this episode. We've got daddy juice here. If you are a girl dad, if you are a boy dad, if you are a dad, if you like the daddy juice, then you've come to the right place. Today we celebrate maybe something that has never happened before and may never actually happen again. I am a student and I'm a teacher at NYU. I'm a student of media history, and I can tell you that I don't know that anyone ever collected 365 television ads or print ads or radio commercials or banner ads. No one has done that, and no one will do that again. And if they do it again, as the old saying goes, once is witty and twice is shitty. So you'll always be a follower. You'll always be second best. You'll never be the best, see, because the best is sitting in the green room as I continue to embarrass him for the next 6 or 7 minutes until he comes on the show, Mr. Brian Fanzo. By the way, Fanzo was guest number, I'm not even sure if this is correct. How can it be that he was guest number 230? 230? He must have been on here sooner. Maybe this was the second time he was on. If he's on the show 5 times, he gets a smoking jacket. Guest number 230, Brian Fanzo, creator, founder, author, speaker, AI artist. Who ever thought that he would be an AI artist? He didn't think he'd be an AI artist, dreamer, girl dad, and someone crazy enough to think they can change the world. And you know, those people are often the ones that change the world. We've got a bunch of comments here. Let's see who's here. Delphi Cat weighs in with awe. Deborah Gloria says, this is fun. Delphi Cat says, bring your own damn cocktail. What are we drinking? Well, I am drinking Glenn Rothers. And correct, Deborah, that was Pink's drummer, Mark Shulman, 100%. Ms. Bowling says, what if you're a mom? Oh, true. Absolutely. My bad. If you're a mom, you have to be drinking double because you have to put up with the dads and the children. Wanda is here and she says, congrats. No doubt. Kevin Sturm says, that's the hashtag. Let's make a trend. Along with, what's happening to bored Elon, by the way? What's happening? Has he been suspended yet? Is that a parody account? I think so. Delphi Cat says, Kevin, your music was the intro. Did you hear it? That was a little bit of a sneaky move. And yes, I've just received a lawyer's letter, cease and desist from Kevin Sturmer. Not fair at all. Lubna is here and she says, hello. Let's get into the show. Look, I want to talk to you today about the difference between influence and popularity. Popularity is your friends and your fans and your followers. And I don't mean real friends. I mean fake friends. You know, the ones you buy. That's popularity. But influence, well, influence is something different because influencers are influence, but influencers are people that are trusted. And the two words that I take away from what Fanzo has done over the last 365 days, and not just Fanzo, but it takes a village, it takes a team, his entire amazing team, is he has demonstrated ridiculous consistency in the face of adversity and ridiculous challenges. I think his Jeep broke down 17 times. Forget about compromised wallets. I think his Jeep was the bigger problem of this entire project. Forget about like flights that were delayed. But the other thing is trust. And with influence and trust, you cannot separate them. And I just want to talk about, I said as a bit of a joke, yes, Lubna, 365 days of consistency. We discussed Fanzo in the Collective Cafe this morning. We do it every Monday through Friday, 8 to 9. And I just basically said, you know, the thing about consistency is that, you know, it is damn near impossible to stay the course. And he did. He stayed the course. He made the smallest of deviations, changing the definition of minting on the day to minting before reveal. But for the most part, he never wavered. He never went off course. He never allowed himself to get distracted, to get diluted, to get disillusioned, or any word that begins with a D. But he was in my ear holes for almost a year. I think I might have in the end missed a few episodes, but for the most part, I probably listened to well over 340, maybe even 350, maybe even more. He was with me every day. Leslie says, this man deserves a vacation. I have a feeling he's actually, you know what, let him sit in the green room for another few minutes and have a bit of a vacation while I wax lyrical. But I want to talk about the fact that Fanzo, he's drinking now, which is good. Maybe that's my sign that I need to bring him on. He's talked enough today. Fanzo influenced me at every twist and every turn. And you know, when you have someone in your ear holes every single day, how can you not be influenced? How can you not start to talk like them? And I don't mean 1.5 speed. I'm talking about the words, like taking the struggling out of struggling artist. You know, fast forward to present day, where was it Fanzo? Wasn't it Fanzo? Did he play a role? I would have to say he played some role. OpenSea reversing their position on royalties. I was outspoken against it. Fanzo was outspoken against it. But Fanzo has the audience and the community and the consistency and the trust and the credibility of being a collector, being a builder, being a creator. So, you know, I normally go through all of these things. Shout out to Jordash Johnson. And I just want to say that, you know, when I look at my life, talking about being influenced. Alpha Collective, Fanzo, is an advisor helping me navigate this journey, launching a collection in the worst possible time to launch a collection. The mission of Alpha Collective is to help onboard the next billion wallets. That mission is influenced by Fanzo through education, through giving without expecting back in return, selflessly giving without conditions, educating, lifting people up, helping them. I saw this at a conference that I was at. What's wrong with marketing today? And the answer is there's nothing wrong with marketing. There may be something wrong with marketers. But if you implement some of these principles and practices, if you listen to Fanzo and to some of these use cases, how can you not be influenced? I have told people about the one that just blew me away, which is people's personal time off, their paid time off, the ability for their leave to be NFT'd. And if they don't value their leave, they can sell it to someone who values their leave. Maybe someone had a baby and they want to spend just a couple more extra days out the office and get paid. They look at the floor and they buy it off the floor. This is revolutionary stuff. And these use cases have been piling up over the last year. How can you not be influenced? A word that came out of this big conference was courage. There is no one more courageous than Fanzo when it comes to boldly going where, no degen has been before. Being able to go out there and collect and collect and collect and not lose faith when the tides turned and when the sentiment seemed to wane. I think Wayne. He has shown courage, and he has been a model not only to his 3 beautiful daughters, but to everyone around him. In the morning, in our collective cafe, we tend to talk about Fanzo a lot. How can you not talk about someone that influences you on a daily basis? We are putting out a book called Forever Changed. Sharon is in the house. She is a member of our collective. She said Alpha in the house, but I'll tell you what else is in the house is Ali Sabet. Ali Sabet has designed the cover, which is also an NFT, where readers will get royalties, influenced again through connections and through meeting Fanzo. This is just my story. But when I walked away from this conference and I looked at the 6 things that Jeff Charney, former CMO of Progressive, spoke about as things to watch, I scored 5 out of 6. Creators, blockchain/Bitcoin, Web3, metaverse, and work from home. Fanzo scores 6 out of 6 with cannabis. Puff, puff, past. Pause. 420, a 24-hour clubhouse room that we did last year. Fanzo is the king. Fanzo, says Drew Cohen, who also, by the way, is part of that influence because Drew helped draw up the first smart contract for Alpha Collective, and Kevin Sturmer created our NFTs. How is it possible not to be influenced by a man that is truly a man of men and a person of person and a whatever you want to identify with as someone you want to identify with, someone that has led the way? And so just before I bring him on, I wanted to dedicate the seated soliloquy to Fanzo. And it's called Everything Has Led to This. I heard him say this in the space last night. And you know what? I've been saying this as well. I was interviewed by a journalist and I said, you know what? I'm all in on Web3. Again, influenced by Fanzo. Actually, I blame Fanzo for that one, but that's another story. And I said, Joe Mandisi at MediaPost, I said, everything has led to this. And he said, Joe, that's what you say every time. And I said, but this time I mean it. Everything has led to this. When I think back, social media, when I think back about all the different things that I've been working on, nothing has felt this profound, this purposeful, this momentous, this ability for us to go out and change the world. We is greater than me. Community capitalism, the ability to give up a little in order to give and gain a lot. These are the messages that Fanzo has whispered and ranted and raved in our ear holes for the last 365 days. 365 days. Just take it in, my friends. Take it in. And now it's time to take him in. Let's bring him onto the show. Mr. Brian Fanzo. How's that for an intro?
I appreciate it. And yeah, I did have my drink, and yeah, I think I've been on the show at least 2 other times, so I think we're good both ways.
You've been on the show many times, and you will be 3:30 and 4:40 and 5:50. Dan, Terrence is here. You got your founders in the house. Beatles trivia only. I'm not even. And Steve Jordan.
I do not like Beatles trivia. Anything but Beatles trivia.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah.
I was
over on trivia nights. I was well, I'm not great at trivia, period. But Beatles trivia, I am extremely bad at, apparently.
So Donna says, so influenced by him. This is awesome. Steve Jordan is here. Sucks at game night though. I think we have. Look, feel free to rub it in. Let's go for it. And the good. What is it? The good NTH dad.
The good and the dad. The good and the dad.
Oh, the good and the dad. You know what? Listen, I've been drinking. A way to go, fans. Have been great watching you make this journey. Thanks for including us all. Jeremy Cullen is laughing at me, not with me. And Dan Terrence says, what a journey. I joined it about 358 days ago. Woohoo! Native to crypto. You know, Fanzo, as I said last night on the space, I was purchase number 1. I was literally hitting the reload button. It felt so important for me to be the first person to purchase, because I wanted to just demonstrate to you how much I believed in you and my commitment to you, and how sure I was that this project was going to be a winner, because you're a winner.
Well, I appreciate that. And I remember that, wholeheartedly. And, we were on that, we'll just say coin company that will yet to be not mentioned on the show. But we were, on that journey of Web3, and, like every day, it felt like, it was like a step forward, a step backwards. Not only were we learning, but we were, trying out so many different things. And, because like for me, we launched the podcast without thinking about dropping the NFTs, but we launched the podcast, of course, 11/11, and we dropped the NFTs on 12/12. So it was exactly a month later we dropped the NFTs, and a lot of that was just like, hey, I'm gonna ride the wave and lean in, and we were thankful for so many like yourself and Joe Polizzi and Dan, who's in here, and so many others that came and supported and bought the founders coin NFTs, as well as our super fans NFTs. And man, it feels like a long time ago, but I guess it kind of was, because it was almost a year ago. It's just kind of wild.
And yet it's kind of weird, because here you are at the finish line. Anticlimax or no, I'm going to actually just unplug and chill, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow.
It's like bittersweet, I guess, is the more feeling. The only way I could describe it is it feels like after Thanksgiving dinner, when you like ate too much, but you were like happy you did it, and you're glad that it happened, but you're kind of like unsure how what tomorrow is going to bring. If you have like, that's kind of, it kind of very much, I'm very proud the fact that, like you said, I didn't waver. And, part of the reason we didn't waver is because I knew one excuse, one waiver was all I needed for the wheels to fall off. And it was like, you know what, I'm not going to mail it in. I'm not going to, bring in someone else. Our friend Michael Stelzner messaged me a couple of times. He's like, today is a good day just to take the day off. You don't need to do this every day. You don't need to prove that to anyone. But I knew that like one day would turn into two to turn in 3, and this wouldn't have gone any further. But I'm really excited to not buy an NFT tomorrow. So that part more than the podcast, just not having to research and not buying an NFT.
Gotta love that roadcaster. By the way, the company that he's referring to is .o. So
Amen to that.
The Voldemort of creator coins, as we like to say in our Twitter DMs. Now, there's a lot to celebrate, but I thought I knew everything about you. Jordash says, "LOL, Stelzner being that devil on your shoulder." Who was the angel on your shoulder? If Stelzner was the devil, by the way.
Yeah, I'll just say I'll plead the fifth. I'm not even sure.
Yeah, well, exactly. Well, there are too many angels. Now, as I said, we found out some fun facts about you. One of them, for example, and I thought I knew everything. I knew about bacon. I knew about driving for it was UPS, right?
Mm-hmm.
UPS, but apparently, in our little fun facts, you were once a DJ at a skating rink, and we actually have a photo, believe it or not, of you back in those days. I can still do that as well.
That's pretty close to my skate. That's pretty close to that skating rink too. Shout out to Strawbridge skating rink. I worked there from 14 to 18. I love that job.
I mean, we'll get into a lot of things, but you can see, I mean, you know me, I've been on this journey. What was once Corona TV, now Joseph Jaffe is Not Famous. And in a way, like the commonalities, but also the influence. This is the quote that I found for you, and it's I know you're a huge fan of the administration, but still, Condoleezza Rice has our respect. But I love the quote. People who end up as first don't actually set out to be first. They set out to do something they love. It's a beautiful, beautiful quote. And when I look at the show, and when I look at the coin, and when you look at this, it's like when you love something, you've already won. You've already won. And so first, best, worst, whatever, that stuff is just meaningless. What is meaningful is that you made a difference.
In that, I mean, amen to that. And it's funny. People have been really, trying to quantify like what's the best part, or what's the number one NFT that you have, or what's the number one takeaway. And I think that is part of it. Is like, I don't think I need a bunch of individual participation trophies or awards. Like for me, it's for me, I think the number one takeaway, the number one piece of this whole thing is at 40 when we started this journey. I proved to myself that I could do something that I didn't believe I could do. And as you said, like you mentioned my Jeep. Funny enough, I think my Jeep rugged me for more than even when my wallet got compromised, which is not saying much for my damn 2011 Jeep that I couldn't get out of the shop. Yep, there you go. Like this whole year, I mean, the amount of ups and downs. I mean, this week, what's the chance that the last week of the show could be one of the worst, 48 hours in crypto history? And it happened like 3 days at the end of the show. And I just kept shaking my head, and I messaged Drew and I said, I guess it just adds to the story. I think that became like our slogan for every, roller coaster ride part of it, good and bad. It was like, well, I guess it adds to the story. And I think when you take that mindset, it also kind of allows some of that to not derail you, because there was plenty of times where I was like, okay, this thing happening is enough. I mean, I got COVID twice in 30 days, and both times it rocked my world. And I had spent all that time not getting COVID, and to get it twice in 30 days. And we didn't miss an episode, didn't miss buying an NFT. So I might have done them laying down from my couch with my portable microphone, but the podcast continued.
Yeah, I was worried that you had competition, because I just pre-recorded with John Lee Dumas, and he's been doing his Entrepreneurs on Fire every day. And I was like, wait a second. Are you telling me that, I didn't say this to him, but this is what I was thinking. Are you telling me that Fanzo wasn't the first? And then I found out that what he does is he records 7 in one day. So technically that's cheating. Sorry, John Lee. Fanzo is still the winner.
I'll give him credit though. He was part of the inspiration for the podcast. Because I was there in the room at Social Media Marketing World the very first year when he made the comment, I'm going to do a daily podcast. And you should have heard the people that told him that's the dumbest idea. No one wants to listen to an interview every single day. You're going to go crazy. And that was, 10 years ago. And I mean, part of the story for me was I remember walking out of there and I was like, he does this and it works. Like, holy hell. And I mean, it works so much that he had to move to Puerto Rico to avoid all the money that he, the taxes and all the money that he was making. So I remember telling myself, it was him. And then there was someone that I can't remember her name. She did a daily Google Hangout show, and like, it was killing it. The show wasn't great, but she had a daily Google Hangout show. And so like those two things, I remember telling myself, if I ever had the opportunity and I was in a space or an industry that I could, like, I had the passion for it, I wasn't going to make an excuse for not trying to kind of, own the SEO and do something that someone else hadn't. So yeah, John Lee, we're more acquaintances. We haven't really hung out much. We have a lot of mutual friends, but yeah, he was definitely, I mean, I remember being in that room and all of the haters that told him that was dumb. And, all these years later, and now people pay to be on his show. So I tip the cat to those before us. And, for me, part of this too was, like you said, the content's evergreen. They're not all interviews, and no episode is the same. Every episode was attempted to be 15 minutes long. I think only like 3 ended up being 15 minutes long. So, of all the things I attempted to do was to keep episodes short. And for whatever reason, I couldn't figure out how to do that.
I mean, Fanzo, you can't even introduce yourself in 15 minutes, let alone do a podcast.
I just flew to London to give a 10-minute keynote. That was talking about, I was like, really? You guys want me? Thank goodness they put me at the end. And the host, came over, whispered in my ear. He said, we put you at the end. You can go over. You're good. I was like, at least they know me on that side.
I mean, I'll tell you that actually it goes back to John Lee's story, how he was listening to all these podcasts. And when he came to the end, like, I've got to the end of Netflix. Now what do I do? He didn't know what to do because he'd listened to them all. So he started his own. I had moments like that where I got to the end of your podcast and I didn't know what to do. It was so bad. I had to listen to Stelzner's podcast. So just kidding. Don't anybody tell him I said that. But there were times like that when suddenly you weren't with me and I felt lonely and I felt alone. And I said to you as a joke, like not a joke, but earlier I said, you think it's hard, delivering a podcast every day. Try listening to one. But the one and a half.
I think there's actually something to be said on that, right? Like, I mean, I will say this, like, I'm not, there's a really amazing group of people that were messaging me, almost regularly, like, hey, I'm listening, or hey, where's the episode? And so many of them, like yourself, that I've respected, long before the Web3 space. And I will say, like, for me, I'm not sure if I have that commitment, right? Like in a weird way, like I can't stand right now. Like there's a documentary. I'm a documentary person, and the documentary, The Vow 2, which is about NXIVM and cults, which I love watching. They're dripping it out episode by episode weekly. And I was like, no, I'm going to wait because I want to watch it all in one night. And so, like, I have a feeling if I was on the flip side of this and it was content I wanted to create, I probably would have kind of binge listened. So I appreciate everyone, that was listening along the way. And, I remember when you said, you're listening to me at 1.5. And so it's hard to listen on Twitter Spaces. And it's funny, I got a lot of those remarks the last 3 days because we've done more Twitter Spaces. And like Mitch Jackson, a couple others were like, I was in the Twitter space, but I much prefer you at the faster speed, which I don't think I would have ever thought people would have preferred me faster. So I'll take that as another win in this journey.
I mean, we're going to talk about what happens now in season 2. We're just having such a good time that we haven't even had a chance to even talk about the project, which we'll do. But the podcast will live on. We'll ask Fanzo towards the end what will become of the podcast. But if you want to subscribe to NFT 365, it is literally wherever podcasts are found. I dare you, I challenge you to go and find a platform where it isn't. You come back to me and there will be letters as well. Did you miss any?
No, I tell you, I had a checklist from 5 podcasts ago that I launched a long time ago. And I went through and I was like, I think it's 84 podcasting apps that I went through and made sure, like, a lot of them you have to manually put your RSS feed in there. But yeah, you're right. I would love to find one that the podcast isn't on, right? And but no, I appreciate that.
All right, I'm going to do a little bit of a refill, but I'm looking at comments. They're amazing comments. Keep them coming. And here is Needy, and Needy said, Fanzo definitely has been making a difference, raising awareness for mental health and so many other causes. I'm glad you said that because, my son is ADHD, and and I've heard you so much, and he's been, on a personal note, he's been, he struggles to get out of bed in the morning. He literally sat at his desk for 8 hours yesterday, maybe did 15 minutes of work. And it's hard because as his parent, I love him, but as parent, I want to push him, I want to challenge him, I want him to get it done. And then I keep hearing your words in my ear holes, talking to me about the challenge. That must have just made it even more difficult and challenging to just keep going like this. Because people without ADHD, hell, they can't even start a podcast, let alone kind of, quit after 13 episodes. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, and thanks, Nidhi. I mean, Nidhi is a dear friend that I spent more hours on Clubhouse with her, sharing rooms on mental health than any other person on Clubhouse. The ADHD part was definitely a big piece of this, right? Because I've been very vocal about my ADHD. I was diagnosed 10 years ago. My middle daughter diagnosed ADHD and dyslexia, like myself, and so I feel for your son as well, right? And I will say, the struggle, I often, I think people, they kind of assume like ADHD, squirrel, I can't, pay attention, or we all have a little bit of ADHD, but it impacts every day of my life, every minute of every day of my life, right? From, I feel I just doing it now, right? I was touching my beard, and a lot of that is like, coping mechanisms. I have like a really ridiculous lockjaw thing that I'm dealing with right now in the moment, which, for someone that talks all the time, I just kind of learned how to go through that pain. But, the magic that I kind of figured out, and I have to thank, in a weird way, the pandemic forcing me to slow down, was that the idea of giving myself grace was really the only way that I was able to push through the ADHD times. Because, the more I sat there and get frustrated and like, I guys got to do it. Just start, Fanzo. Why are you so dumb? Everyone else can do it. Just write down on a piece of paper. Just do it. All of those things just build up. And like the way that we work, especially with rejection sensitivity dysphoria, especially with some of the things that, that kind of compile, we're short on dopamine, right? And what that really means is, it's not that we can't focus, is that we struggle regulating our focus. And we often really, work best when we're seeking out that dopamine. And it's why, like, I'm a great procrastinator. I always have been. And it's because with that rush of adrenaline at the end, I operate at my best. But like, how do you manufacture that when you're sitting there? Or like with this podcast, there was plenty of days, man, especially June, July, for whatever reason. And maybe it's just because that was more recently and I can remember it. But there was plenty of days where I attempted to record the podcast 3 times during the day, and I just stopped. I didn't even hit the button, right? I didn't even press the damn button. I would get ready, I'd just set up, and I'd be like, okay, what am I? And I could feel it. And this is where I think for me, I'm 10 years into figuring out how to be self-aware. And I think that's the magic here is, and I would go, oh, nope, I can't do it right now. It's not going to be me. I'm not going to have the energy. I'm not going to have the focus. And I would just give myself grace. And I think that would be my best advice, is just giving yourself grace and like finding other things. Like what I would do is I would just stand up and I would be like, well, the podcast will come out at 5 o'clock today. Right. And when I would do that, all of a sudden, like I would feel a little bit of weight off my shoulders. Then I'd go work on some other things, and then I'd come back and try it again. And so that's pretty much the best advice I can give, is just and unfortunately, as a parent, myself as a parent as well, I'll just say like giving, like, it's hard to give us grace, right? Because like we with ADHD, we don't want charity, and we often, we really don't seek out someone changing their, like accommodating us, right? Like that's a thing that really, that often, and a lot of it has to do with just the stigma around ADHD. And so in a way, I think it's just a matter of, being them, us finding a way to be self-aware enough to give ourselves grace, to recognize that we just don't operate the same as a neurotypical, and that's okay. And I think for me, that's a piece of it, but it's still something, that I struggle with each and every day. I mean, I couldn't turn my brain off last night. And I finally just decided, fine, I'll just go create some AI artwork. And so I didn't go to sleep last night. I ended up pulling an all-nighter. Didn't close my eyes for 1 minute. And I used to beat myself up about that and really get angry and try to stay in bed, and it would just make me a miserable, frustrated human being the next day. So in a way, that's kind of like the only the best advice I could give. Oh, I think you're on mute.
I am on mute. I have to put $1 into the tip jar. Why did I? Oh, you know why I went on mute? Because while you were talking and pouring out your heart, like the the cruel person I am, I'm busy pouring more scotch and trying to make sure that I got away with it, which I didn't because I was still on mute. But Drew says you're already 1.5 speed, so there you go. Now, fans, I got a question to ask you, which is, what do Brian Piper and Gary V have in common? The answer is absolutely nothing, because, by the way, I invited Gary V to come on and I invited Beeple to come on. They still might, but they probably won't. But they didn't show up, both of them. Gary V is dead to me. Beeple is dead to me. They didn't buy founders passes, but I tell you who did is Brian Piper, and he's here to wish you congratulations in person. By the way, just before we go to Brian, we just have a great comment from Brian Piper, who said, the project is a true masterpiece in the history of Web3 and contains so many highs and lows from the landscape. I don't think this is hyperbole. I think this is an absolutely true to form statement. But Brian, welcome back to the show. You've been on the show before. I'll disappear for a moment and let you chat to Fanzo for a few moments.
Thank you, Joseph. Always great to be on the show. Brian, it's great seeing you in London. Always great to see you. And I just wanted to come on in person and thank you for everything you've done in the community and the spaces, and the knowledge sharing has been just incredible in this project, and the networking. So it's really been a true masterpiece for Web3 history. So thanks for everything you've done. I know it's been a Herculean effort.
I appreciate that. And two Brians are better than any Joseph, right? So, if we had controls to this, see, that's what happens.
That's an intro. That's for the intro of the show. Two Brians.
There
you go. This is a Brian sandwich.
It is. And I've got to hang out with Brian. You and I have been at numerous events together, right? I got to see you on stage, which has been a lot of fun too. And I think, from an education perspective and what your background, I mean, both of you in that space, right? I think there's such a beautiful thing for me, right? Being someone that's kind of like the other side of the fence, where if I can help influence those that are educating, the youth and those that are in secondary ed and across the board, like it's a win-win. And, I appreciate both of your, support, since day one, since before day one. And, I think that's part of this. We've been talking about this a lot today, but for me, the daily grind of it, I wasn't driven by money. I wasn't driven by download numbers. I was partially driven by, I was kind of convinced I couldn't do it. So I was kind of like when eventually will the rug pull out from me? But in a way that, it was the days and the times where I was like either ready to give up or wasn't sure why the hell I'm doing it. Right. I don't have a Bored Ape. It was the days that I got messages from, people like yourself and Joe Polizzi and, Joe messing with me. And I said something about, oh, you want to come on the podcast season 2? He's like, I thought you'd ask me to co-host. And I was like, what? I was like, get the hell out of here. Right. And I know we know both him. So it's, I'll say and Michael Stelzner as well. I have to give him a shout out. He's listened, on a regular basis, messaging me, each day, listening. And these, I will say it's one thing to go after and educate Web3. It's another thing for so many of my peers and so many that I look up to come along on the journey with me. And that to me is really part of the motivation that has allowed this crazy ride. It was funny just saying that saying it's 365 days it's still a little weird feeling because it still doesn't feel real yet. It's just been so ingrained in every minute of every day.
There are many great conversations in the back channel going on about, first of all, forget about auctioning off a mosaic of 365 NFTs. There is an auction going on in terms of speed of listening to Fanzo. I think we're up to 2.0 at the moment, as there is a debate about Brian versus Brian. There's only one way to spell it, right? Brian?
Of course.
Yep. The Y guy he got dropped on his head and they added the Y. That's what I've been told by his parents.
See, it still continues. All right, Mr. Piper, I'm going to tuck you back. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you both. Appreciate it.
Go tweet out to Gary V that he's still got 21 minutes left to basically not be dead to me. So
I'll let him know.
Just a little bit of fun. Fanzo, people were there for you. Look, people show up during the good times and the bad times. And the good times feel great, but they're not why we do this. It's the bad times when people show up, when you actually see who your real friends are at the end of the day. This is one of those exceptions where I feel people are just really, really celebrating you, like people changing their profile pictures to you. I think we're all realizing what an undertaking it is, because I think we all know that we could just never do something like this. We could never do something like this. You are the exception to the norm, and of course, the word exception comes from the word exceptional. And I hope you take this in and you appreciate everyone that is celebrating you today, rather than commiserating with you when your wallet was compromised. That's ancient history.
It's a 22 unopened text messages at the moment. I will say, it's one of those weird things about this journey as well. Like, I never really knew who was listening, right? I knew some people, right? I knew people were coming in and out. And I also, I was asked a question yesterday on an interview, which I thought was interesting, on just like, the idea of like my identity. And because I had a fairly, well-known personal brand, and I've been building, as a speaker, what this did for like my identity as far as like a daily podcaster. And in a weird way, like when I was asked the question, I was thinking about it, it never once crossed my mind. And, part of it was, it goes back to the conversation Drew and I had when this started. We said like, how can I make the biggest impact on this space? Like, the word impact was what we used. And the simple conversation was, this space needs a daily podcast. But then there was the problem of, well, how do we bring people along the journey, not have that financial component? And what if we created a time capsule? And in a way that also just meant to me was another way I can make an impact. And, the bigger piece of this is, I in a weird way, I feel like I've done disservice to some friends that in the past have done things that I didn't think I could do. And I don't think I cheerleaded enough for them, because now that I've done something that I didn't think I could do, and a lot of others maybe not think that they could do either, I realize how much I appreciate all that, support and comments and love. And, and there was, I never looked at today. Like, it's so weird to say that. I've said this a whole bunch now. Like, I never pictured November 11th, because like, I just never thought it was a reality in a weirdest of ways. And I think because of that, I never got really overwhelmed by we were of course doing the countdown. We were doing the count up that turned into a countdown, as you do. But it's been bittersweet. Yesterday was interesting. Like, I had a range of emotions, just about like, I really hope that, the impact, the content, the lessons I've learned, like, I'm very, like, I'm pretty, I'm confident, but I'm usually kind of, I'd say more reserved in like where I think my own knowledge or experience is. But I am extremely confident at the moment that there are very few people in the world that can hold a candle to what I know as far as buying an NFT across multiple blockchains, about researching NFT projects, about like the entire experience from setting up wallets to moving things around to getting compromised. And like, I am very proud about those components. And if I hadn't had those other things, they probably wouldn't have made the podcast. And if the podcast wasn't existing, I probably wouldn't have kept that other one going. So in a weird way, from the outside, people would look like I did two things that kind of simultaneously, which we did, but really they were kind of like, they both kept the wheels on this when Lambo at the same, go in the right direction at least.
Yeah, when is that Lambo arriving? But as I said to you yesterday, I was in a meeting in the city, and the person that I'm meeting with, I look at his wrist, and I see 11.11, and I was like, what? I was like, that's tomorrow. And then suddenly, like, a weird thought was like, is he part of the, like, is he a founder? Like, I thought of you, and I said, is that a tattoo? And he said, yes. And I said, why 11/11? Like I still couldn't work it out because I was like, that's Fanzo's date. And he said, it's my anniversary. And I mean, it literally happened within 24 hours of right now. The reason why you never thought about today, Fanzo, is because, as they say, winners never quit and quitters never win. And this isn't quit for you. This is just a brief moment to pause, reflect, learn, introspect, celebrate, enjoy, take it in, enjoy the compliments, and then keep going. And that's why, you know, you are a winner, you know, because this is just a brief moment to pause. But I want to go back to just one thing, and then I want to make sure that in the last, 15 minutes or so, we actually spend time talking about the project, showing some of the NFTs, and talking about what comes next. But I'm going to ask you one question, which is maybe two, which goes into like a little bit more of the introspection. Did you ever think of quitting? Did you ever want to quit?
Yes. Multiple times. And in the weirdest of ways, they weren't the days that you would think they were. Like the days you would have thought they were the days maybe I didn't sleep, or maybe the days that I would have my daughter. But interestingly enough, it was the days where the energy of the space that we're in, I allowed to really impact me, right? From if I open Coinbase and see that it was all red and everything was down. Or even, there's a couple of times where, I question, and it's not, for me, like when people talk about like imposter syndrome and things, like there was plenty of times where there's a topic I know that I am knowledgeable about, and I feel like someone else that I listened to in a Twitter space covered it better than I did. I would tell myself, like, why am I going to talk about that? I just heard it from someone that knows it better than I do. And I had to like continually tell myself, but my audience hasn't heard it. And my audience wants me to translate it. And my goal, and I'll give a shout out to Scott Stratton, Scott Stratton, amazing speaker, marketer. Early on in my speaking career, he sat me down and he said, he's like, one of the things that your strength is that you have to just own is that you are the translator. And you are a translator of things that people can hear from the same people. They can hear from 10 other people, but they want to hear it from you because of the way you present it. And so there were some days that I was just like, I think it was less about quitting, and it was more about like, why do I need to do an episode today? And that did exist. And I don't want to sugarcoat that. And funny enough, like it wasn't the days I had COVID. It wasn't the days my Jeep broke down the one day and I ended up like walking back, and it was like a 4-hour journey. And I got back to my house at like 9:30 PM. Like that day I was like, oh, time to go record a podcast, and literally went in the office, knocked it out. But there was definitely, some days where it felt that. And, I think that also is, it's important to have like your team and your people, because, you mentioned the wallet compromise day, right? Like my wallet got compromised, and that morning I woke up and minted an NFT into a different wallet, and had to do an interview. I actually had to do an interview that morning. And the beauty of it is that I was pretty good with rolling the punches publicly, and on the private side, I was able to express the devastation that I was feeling as far as feeling violated and that side of the house. So it's I'm very proud that I didn't, and I didn't waver, and buying the NFTs every day, and a couple of days I sent crypto to the wrong wallet and it disappeared, and I was like, well, now what do I do, right? And I have to go figure out like, and that struggle sometimes to recognize that, when the market goes down, I get hit. When my wallet was compromised, we focus on the NFTs, but most don't know that, my entire liquidity for this project was taken from my wallet that day in Ethereum. And that really, flipped me upside down, because I had planned for the end of the year and buying NFTs. And when I lost all of that on March 20th, I think I could have easily been, well, now's the good reason to pull the plug. Like, hey, I made it this far. But weirdly, I at that moment, I felt like they would win. Like the hackers, the scammers, the bad people. And I won't let the bad win. And so like that wasn't even, it never even crossed my mind. I was like, well, now I'm gonna have to get a little bit more thrifty and be a little bit more creative with the process. But it's been wild.
I have to tell you, I've unfortunately sent crypto to the wrong wallet for about 365 days. based on the profit and loss of my bag. The only smart decision I made was when I sent crypto to your wallet to buy a founder's pass. I have one more question, and then we'll get into and show some of the actual work and talk about next year. By the way, Jeremy Cullen at the moment is trying to get Gary Vee to come in. I said, Gary, you got 10 minutes to show up and prove that you're not a so a little bit of smack talk never hurt anyone. This should not affect you going on season 2. This is all Jaffe. Jaffe is a rogue and a renegade. I had Dan Pink on my show, and he spoke about his book Regrets, and he said, he said you have to have regrets. Looking back helps you move forward. Do you have any regrets when you look back on the last 365 days?
I watched Joe Polizzi interview Mr. Pink there at CEX this year during this thing, and I literally was at the pool because I was speaking the next day, and I ran back in my board shorts to listen to him share about that regrets piece, and it was very profound. So I'm glad you brought that up, and I do believe I have regrets, regrets in a way that it wasn't I don't regret. When I have all the information that I have at my disposal and I make the best decision at that time, I don't ever worry about you won't hear me Monday courting back. It's why every NFT in my wallet, I mean, it's probably one of my proudest things of this whole damn collection is that there is not one NFT in there that I would be embarrassed to say that I mailed it in or it wasn't the best at that moment, right? The best at the time based on the variables at play. But I do have some regrets on some decisions that probably financially for the podcast, that there was kind of a blurred line where I could have maybe taken, a partnership or an ETH offer to do some things that would have allowed me to bring more people on the team or even reward the team more than I could have. And also just I think a little bit of the regret of, I think in this journey, I did let some outside influence get to me in some times where, for those listening to the show didn't need to, they didn't know what I was talking about. And even whenever, even if they did know what I was talking about, it didn't make the things any better. And so I do have a kind of that piece of the regret of the pie, I guess, of the whole piece. But, it's a question I haven't answered and I'm not going to answer it here. But the question I was asking myself, last night when I couldn't sleep was roll back a year ago. Do I do the podcast and buying an NFT all over again? I don't know the answer to that. I don't really have an answer to it. I'm really proud of what we accomplished. And I know that we created something that's never been done before. And I know it'll be in my byline of my speaker intro 5 years from now, which I'll be very proud of. Well, but it's one of those things.
I do know the answer to that, actually. And the answer is no, you don't do it differently because everything that happened for you, not to you. And you would be different. And everything would be different had you not, and had that not happened. Let's show 365 NFTs in about 1 minute. I hope this works as it should. I'm watching it and I'm keeping my eyes open because I don't want to miss Alpha Collective's free mint. And I'm like, their tears, it's incredible. And watching that is even more incredible. You did something else unbelievably today. which is this setup in spatial. Of all the people that understand virtual worlds, 15 years ago I was in Second Life, and I haven't experienced something closest to Second Life than today. Is it animating? Can you see me moving?
Yep, I can.
All right, so this is unbelievable. We're walking through this. There's a piano bar. Kevin Sturmer is shilling for tips. I mean, there's everything here. There's proof of podcasts. There's a meme wall. There's somebody in here right now. Do they know that they're actually live on the show? Who is it? I don't know. I don't even know who it is. Fanzo, this is incredible how you've like created this beautiful little homage. I think that this must be the meme window. It seems like I don't know. Maybe it's X-rated. But you've gone ahead and created this beautiful gallery. You know, as I said, piano bar. What's going on in here? Just tell us a little bit about this experience.
Yeah, so this is using spatial metaverse, and I mean, I tell you, probably one of the most popular questions I got over this entire journey was, Brian, when are you going to go all in on the metaverse, or how are you going to use the metaverse? And one of like my pet peeves is not demonstrating or not using technology just for technology's sake. I think it's often where a lot of people go during early adoption is that they just want to use technology for technology's sake. And I made the comment, even my good friend Kathy Hackle, who I think she's known as the queen. I think she's either the mother of the metaverse or the queen of the metaverse. She was even giving me a hard time. I said, don't worry. When I find a use case that I believe will allow my audience to experience it in a way that opens their mind and changes their perspective, I will use it. And when we were playing around with a couple other metaverses, there's another great one called some.place that we had on the podcast. I was excited that I said, how can we demonstrate or show off this entire collection? And what better way than someone can walk the gallery? And that was fun today. We walked the gallery with a bunch of our community. And what's still wild, for being ADHD, people talk about memory, right? And we walked the gallery, and from memory, I didn't have a sheet up. There wasn't one thing on my screen. I could literally call out what NFT was, what their utility was. I could probably name their founder and tell you how much their mint price was. But that's just because I had done so much research. Like each one of those days, if you think about it, each day I would narrow it down from 10 to 6 to 3. And then I would be like, I hope it doesn't mint out, because if it mints out, then I have to go to the number 2 one. And then if I can't get that one, and it's an instant reveal. And so, yeah, it's been super cool. A huge shout out to Kevin Sturmer. Kevin is just a rock star of a human. He's the voice of my intro, the music part of this. He's been there since the jump. And when I had the vision of the metaverse, and a couple of times he was like, Brian, let's do it this. I'm like, no, this is what I want to experience. And Kevin's the one that brought it so much to life. And I tip my hat to him, because he's put in all that time on there and bringing what I pictured to life. And anyone can go in there anytime. It's open. And I mean, how cool is it? You can walk and see every NFT, all the art, and really the last 365 days in the metaverse.
Well, listen, I'm putting the URL up here, but it's a tough one. It's a tough one for you to actually type in, but I am putting it in the chat right now. And so if you are watching it even on demand on YouTube right now, just look into the chat and you can click on that link or copy that link, and you can go in. This is a screenshot of me. Went and sought out my NFT Alpha Collective that Kevin designed. It's a magnificent card, membership card. It is electrified. It looks like what a card would look like in the metaverse, in a Web3 environment. And Kevin just nailed the brief. Truly an exceptionally talented man. All right, so Fanzo, in the time we have left, you've minted an NFT every day for 365 days. Quick question, lightning question. What was the last one? I don't even know yet.
The last one was my AI art that I minted today.
Beautiful.
Coming back today. So, and that came as it was the community suggested that. I hadn't even dawned on me, and I found that to be pretty wild. So number 12 in our collection is the actual last day NFT.
And based on your trajectory and where you're going, my friend, it may end up actually being the most valuable individual NFT. But now let's talk about the mosaic. You're going to put it up on auction. Tell us about what happens now, what happens next.
Yeah, so we've had an interesting week with the creator fees you mentioned. One of the things that I think most of us knew, but I don't think we were as hyper aware that the beauty of the blockchain is that when something's on the blockchain, it is immutable. That means it cannot be edited, cannot be manipulated. There is no way to change it. You can't take it from someone's wallet. And one of the things that has not been a standard in the ERC token world was the putting of creator royalties within contracts, which really just means every time something is resold, a percentage is automatically given back to the creator. It goes back to the statement you mentioned earlier. How do we remove the starving from the starving artist? We make sure that they are compensated every time their art is sold, because we all know that like Van Gogh sold something for $10 on the street because he needed his medication, and all of a sudden that art was sold for millions of dollars a year later, and he saw zero, right? And that's the starving artist. And so because of that, we took a hard look. I actually consulted with Bobby Hundreds, who is a big name in the space, the Atom Bomb Squad, and a brilliant businessman. And there's a collective group of people that are working on a new contract that would allow the actual creator royalties to be baked in, and it would block the NFTs from being sold on marketplaces that are trying to get around that. And just for those that aren't as familiar, there's just a bunch of degen flippers that are upset that a percentage goes back. But the fact that that's been the case since the beginning. You just factor that in, right? If you want to flip something for a profit, you factor in the royalties of the creator, and the fact that they kind of petitioned and made a lot of noise to get that out. So with that being said, it'll be a mosaic where we've actually finalized that a big part of the art, and so it'll be one mosaic that'll go up on a marketplace. I will say at this moment, depending on that contract, more than likely it'll be available on Super Rare. Will be the actual marketplace, which is known for having many of the largest sales in the NFT space. And whoever buys that one mosaic, they will get all 365 NFTs. We have a little document for them that like what wallets they have to create, what they have to set up, because that's another limitation of Web3. There's no real way for me to transfer them everything without me still having like the seed phrase. And I can tell you, I don't want to have anything to do with it or that like security of it. So it'll be put up for auction, and we're going to put up for auction, and it won't be the 7-day auction at this moment won't start until there's a first bid. But then once there's a first bid, it'll go for 7 days, and whoever buys it will go from there.
As long as the reserve price is 11.11. But this really is a moment in time. What I said was not gratuitous. It has nothing to do with the fact that I'm founder number one. It has to do with the fact that this is a moment in time. And if you believe that Web3, community capitalism, we is greater than me, shared ownership, shared rewards, if you believe in that, and I believe in that with every fiber of my being, more so than I've believed in anything. And if we go back to like we did in the read, yesterday morning about life after the 30-second spot, talking about the dawn of digital, what's coming. What's coming. And this is a moment in time that captures it and immortalizes it. By the way, Jeremy Cullen says, sorry, guys, I tried, but he stopped responding to everyone. I did get a love response from him, though. So you heard it here first. Gary V loves Fanzo, loves NFT 365, loves Mint 365. And wait, my producers are telling me that he might be the first bidder. That is not confirmed as well. Do your own damn research. Fanzo, we have, I like Linda says, noise, founder number one. Mike Williamson says, to the moon. Fanzo, what happens now? What happens next? I don't even know what happens next. I swear, I don't know. I know that there's a weekly podcast. I know you're not minting. I heard something about other co-hosts. I know nothing else.
So yeah, we're bringing in some other co-hosts right now. I believe publicly we've shared, I don't want to get myself into five other co-hosts for a diversity of voice and views and opinions that are going to do probably it's going to probably end up being they'll do 2 episodes a month. That'll be, some of them will be the two of us kind of having a conversation. Some of them, bringing in some of their voices. I still plan on doing, at least, a weekly solo episode where I'm doing that. We have, a couple guests that I really wanted on in season 1, and they kind of just ghosted me. 2 weeks ago, started reaching out and being like, hey, congrats on the podcast. And we're going to get a couple of them on in the near future. I'm super excited. There are many voices that people know in the podcast, but, from our podcast. We have Jordash coming on, who's been a guest. He's going to be one of the co-hosts. Leslie, who's been on our team, is going to be one of the co-hosts. We just recently announced Travi and Katie Brinkley are going to be a couple of the co-hosts. And we're also going to change up the format a little bit as well. We're going to bring in some creative ways to we did an NFT draft about 4 episodes ago, and it got amazing feedback, and people really loved that kind of change in impulse. But yeah, to me the brand continues, and I'll say the main pivot away from daily in the weirdest way is it's going to free us up to create more content around what we're creating, because that's the hardest thing for me is how do I share out beyond one tweet of every podcast, because it's happening every day. I was recording all these videos and people are like, Brian, you don't ever share out your YouTube videos. I'm like, you want more? There's so much going on. And so I think that to me is a big piece of it. And then I will also say, I've been advising, brought on to advise right now 5 different projects. I want to bring that advising to light, because it's not a fun space right now in Web3 to advise. The fact that a lot of founders, a lot of projects, haven't figured out a business plan, haven't figured out what business tactics are, or even how to be just business savvy and just be a normal business person, has really required me to dial in who I'm working with. And so we're also going to bring some of those projects in on a monthly basis and be like, here's what we're doing. Here's us talking to the founders. And so you're literally going to get the consulting and the advising on the podcast, because I'm extremely confident that the things that I'm helping these projects with are what other projects need help with. And there's really way too many really piss poor, bad advisors out there in the space. So it's going to be fun. We of course, the idea of not only season 2, we'll continue. I have a Twitter space scheduled tomorrow night. I don't think there'll be a podcast episode tomorrow. I had teased that for a while, but I think I'll take a break from tomorrow. There'll be no buying an NFT.
Symptoms.
Yeah, and no recording an episode.
All right, I've updated guest number 230, DJ Brian Fanzo, creator, founder, author, speaker, AI artist, advisor, dreamer, girl dad, someone crazy enough to think that they can change the world. The best is yet to come. And I want to thank everyone for coming out to celebrate you, Brian Fanzo. You are truly an inspiration. You are a winner. And wait a second, I'm just hearing that Gary V has been outbid by Chuck Norris.
You are Chuck Norris approved.
And we will be back next week. Fanzo, congratulations. I'm so proud of you. I'm sure your girls are proud of you too. We're all proud of you and we love you.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching the show about hope, positivity, optimism, and if there's time left over, a little bit of marketing with your host, multiple author, and global keynote speaker, Joseph Jaffe. If you like the show, tell a friend or two. Please subscribe to the show, and if you want to get inside news, previews of upcoming guests, and much more, visit josephjaffe.com/subscribe to sign up for the show's newsletter.
And despite the best ministrations of your wife, you still look ugly.